David had always been different from other kids. While his friends played video games or watched movies, he would spend hours staring at the night sky through his old telescope. His mother used to joke that he was born with his head in the clouds, but David knew it was something deeper than that. He felt like the stars were calling to him, like there was something out there waiting for him. Now, at 28, David worked as a scientist at the big radio telescope station in the mountains of Chile. His job was to listen to sounds from space, hoping to find signs of life beyond Earth. Most people thought he was crazy for believing aliens existed, but David never gave up hope. Every night, he would sit alone in the control room, wearing his headphones and watching the computer screens for any unusual signals. His co-workers often made fun of him. They called him the space dreamer and said he was wasting his time, but David didn't care. He had this strange feeling that something important was going to happen. It was like having an itch you couldn't scratch or remembering a song, but not knowing the words. On this particular night, David was working the late shift again. The mountain facility was completely quiet, except for the humming of machines. Outside, the desert stretched for miles under a blanket of stars. David had brought his usual dinner of instant noodles and coffee, settling in for another long night of listening to the universe. Around 3 in the morning, something changed. David was half asleep when a new sound came through his headphones. It wasn't the usual random noise from space. This was different. It had a pattern, like music, but unlike any music he had ever heard. The sound made his heart race, and he felt goosebumps all over his arms. David quickly sat up and checked all his equipment. Everything seemed normal, but the signal was getting stronger. He tried to trace where it was coming from, but his computers couldn't figure it out. The sound seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Then something even stranger happened. The lights in the control room started flickering on and off. David thought maybe there was a problem with the electricity, but when he looked outside through the big windows, he saw something that made him freeze with amazement. A soft blue light was falling from the sky like snow, but it wasn't snow. The light moved like it was alive, dancing and swirling in the air. As David watched, the blue glow got brighter and brighter until it covered the entire telescope facility. The light was so beautiful that David forgot to be scared. The strange music in his headphones got louder too, and now David could almost understand it. It felt like someone was trying to talk to him through the melody, like the universe itself was singing his name. Without thinking, David stood up and walked toward the door that led outside. When David stepped out of the building, the blue light surrounded him completely. It felt warm and safe, like being hugged by someone who loved him very much. The light didn't hurt his eyes even though it was very bright. Instead, it made him feel calm and happy in a way he had never felt before. That's when he saw her. She appeared in the center of the blue light like she was made of starlight herself. David had seen pictures of aliens in movies, but this being looked nothing like the scary creatures from science fiction. She was beautiful in a way that made David's heart stop. Her skin seemed to glow with a soft silver light that changed to blue when she moved. Her hair floated around her head like she was underwater, and her eyes looked like they contained entire galaxies. She wore something that looked like a dress made of liquid light. It flowed around her body like water, but David could see that it wasn't really fabric. It was more like captured starlight that had been woven into clothing. Everything about her seemed to shimmer and change, like looking at the reflection of the moon on a lake. David wanted to run or scream or do something, but he couldn't move. Not because he was scared, but because something deep inside him recognized her. It was the strangest feeling, like meeting someone he had known his whole life but had somehow forgotten. The being looked at David with eyes full of tears. David was surprised that an alien could cry, and even more surprised that her tears looked just like human tears. They sparkled as they fell down her glowing cheeks, and David felt an overwhelming urge to comfort her. She started walking toward him, and David noticed that her feet didn't quite touch the ground. She moved like she was floating on air, graceful and smooth like a dancer. As she got closer, David could see that she was smiling, but it was a sad smile, like someone who had been looking for something for a very long time. When she was just a few feet away, she stopped and looked directly into David's eyes. David felt like she was looking right into his soul, seeing all his thoughts and feelings and memories. But instead of feeling invaded or uncomfortable, he felt understood for the first time in his life. Then she did something that changed David's life forever. She reached out and pulled him into a gentle hug. Her arms felt real and warm, not cold or strange like David might have expected. She held him close, and David could feel her heart beating against his chest. It was beating in the same rhythm as his own heart, which seemed impossible, but somehow felt perfectly right. As she held him, she whispered something in his ear. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But the words she spoke weren't in any language David knew, yet somehow he understood them perfectly. "I've finally found you, my human," she whispered. The moment she said those words, David's whole world exploded with memories that weren't his own. He saw images of distant planets with purple skies and silver trees. He saw cities made of crystal floating in space. He saw himself, but not himself, living among beings of light in a place that felt like home. David felt like he was drowning in these strange memories, but the being held him tighter and whispered soothing sounds. Slowly, the visions faded, leaving David feeling confused but somehow complete, like a puzzle piece that had finally found where it belonged. When David looked into her eyes again, he saw something there that made his heart skip a beat. Love. Pure, endless love that seemed to have been waiting for him across time and space. She was looking at him like he was the most precious thing in the universe, like she had been searching for him forever. David didn't understand what was happening to him, but he knew that his life would never be the same. This mysterious being had called him her human, and something deep inside him responded to those words, like a key turning in a lock. As they stood there together, surrounded by the dancing blue light under the star-filled sky, David felt like he was finally home. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but he knew that this moment was the beginning of something incredible. The alien princess had found him, and David's greatest adventure was about to begin. David's mind was spinning like a washing machine. The beautiful being was still holding him, and her touch felt so familiar that it almost hurt. He wanted to ask a million questions, but his mouth wouldn't work properly. All he could do was stare into her galaxy-filled eyes and try to make sense of what was happening to him. "I know this is confusing," she said softly, her voice echoing in his mind, even though her lips barely moved. "Let me help you remember." She placed her glowing hand gently on David's forehead, and suddenly the world around them changed. They were no longer standing outside the telescope facility. Instead, they were floating in space, surrounded by stars and colorful clouds of cosmic dust. David should have been terrified, but he felt completely safe. "My name is Zara," the being said, her voice now clearer than before. "I am a princess from a place called the Andorian Galaxy, very far from here. But you already know me, David. You've always known me." As she spoke, images began flooding David's mind again. But this time they came slowly, like watching a movie. He saw himself, but not as David the scientist. He was someone else, someone who looked different but felt exactly like him inside. This other version of himself had blue-tinged skin and wore clothes made of the same shimmering material as Zara's dress. "Your name was Kieran," Zara explained, watching the memories play out in David's mind. "You were my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life. We were supposed to rule our people together and explore the universe side by side." In the visions, David saw this other version of himself laughing with Zara in a palace made of living crystal. They danced together under 3 purple moons, and they planned great adventures across the stars. The love between them was so strong that David could feel it in his chest like a warm fire. But something went wrong, Zara continued, her voice becoming sad. Our people needed someone to make the most dangerous journey ever attempted. We had discovered your galaxy, and we wanted to make friends with the life forms here. But the distance was so great that no one had ever tried to cross between galaxies before. David watched as his other self, Kieran, volunteered for the mission. Even in the visions, David could feel the fear and excitement of that moment. Kieran knew he might never return, but he also knew that connecting 2 galaxies could change everything for the better. I begged you not to go, Zara whispered, tears flowing down her cheeks again. But you said it was our duty to build bridges between worlds. You promised me that no matter what happened, you would find a way back to me. The next part of the vision was harder to watch. David saw Kieran's ship, a beautiful vessel that looked like a flying jewel, heading into the dark space between galaxies. For a while, everything went according to plan. But then the ship hit something that wasn't supposed to exist, a tear in space and time itself. The cosmic storm scattered your essence across the universe, Zara explained. Your ship was destroyed, but your soul survived. It traveled through space and time until it found a new home. David watched in amazement as a glowing ball of light, which Zara said was Kieran's soul, fell toward Earth like a shooting star. The light disappeared into the planet, and David understood that this was how he had been born. He wasn't just David, the human scientist. He was also Kieran, the space explorer, reborn in a new form. I felt it the moment you were reborn, Zara said, but I couldn't find you right away. Earth is protected by natural barriers that make it hard for us to locate specific souls. I had to wait until you were old enough and strong enough to hear my call. Everything started making sense to David now. His lifelong obsession with space wasn't just curiosity, it was Kieran's memories trying to surface. His feeling of being different from other humans wasn't just imagination, it was because part of him truly wasn't from Earth. That signal I detected tonight, David said, his voice hoarse with emotion. That was you calling to me? Zara nodded. I've been sending that signal for years, hoping that the part of you that is still Kieran would recognize it. Tonight, you finally did. David felt overwhelmed by all this information. Part of him wanted to deny it all, to claim it was impossible. But another part of him, the part that had always felt like it belonged among the stars, knew that every word was true. So, what happens now? David asked. Am I still human? Or am I this Kieran person? Zara smiled, and for the first time since she had appeared, it was a truly happy smile. You are both, she said. You have David's memories and experiences, but you also have Kieran's soul and abilities. You are something new, something special that has never existed before. To prove her point, Zara showed David how to access some of Kieran's abilities. She taught him to feel the electromagnetic fields around them, to sense the life energy of every living thing nearby. David was amazed to discover that he could actually do these things. It was like discovering he had superpowers he never knew about. But there's something else you need to know, Zara said, her expression becoming serious again. I'm not the only one who has been looking for you. There are others from my galaxy who want to find you for very different reasons. Before David could ask what she meant, the peaceful space around them began to shake. The stars started flickering like broken light bulbs, and David heard a deep rumbling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. They've found us, Zara said, her voice filled with worry. We need to go back to your world now. The vision ended abruptly, and David found himself back outside the telescope facility. But now he could feel things he had never felt before. He could sense the energy from Zara's ship hovering invisibly above them. He could feel the electromagnetic fields from all the electronic equipment inside the building. Most importantly, he could feel the love radiating from Zara like warmth from a fire. "Who found us?" David asked, though part of him already knew the answer wouldn't be good. "Enemies of my people," Zara said grimly. "They have been chasing me across the galaxy, and now they know where I am. They want to capture me and use my knowledge to build weapons. But more than that, they want you." "Me? Why would they want me?" "Because you are the bridge between two galaxies now. Your unique nature makes you incredibly powerful, and in the wrong hands, that power could be used to destroy entire worlds." David felt a chill run down his spine. Just minutes ago, he had been a lonely scientist searching for signs of alien life. Now he was apparently some kind of cosmic being with the power to save or destroy civilizations. It was too much to process. But as he looked at Zara, still beautiful and glowing in the blue light, David felt something stronger than fear. He felt purpose. For the first time in his life, he knew exactly why he existed. The adventure was just beginning, and David was ready to face whatever came next. David barely had time to process what Zara had told him when bright lights suddenly flooded the telescope facility. At first, he thought it was more of Zara's blue glow, but these lights were harsh and white, cutting through the darkness like searchlights. The rumbling sound he had heard earlier was getting louder, and now David could tell it was coming from helicopters. "Hide your ship," David whispered urgently to Zara, though he wasn't sure why he knew to do that. Zara nodded and waved her hand. The blue glow around them instantly disappeared, and David felt rather than saw her invisible spacecraft move higher into the sky. But it was too late. The helicopters had already spotted the unusual energy readings, and they were landing all around the facility. Within minutes, the place was crawling with soldiers in black uniforms. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up barriers and scanning the area with strange-looking devices. David recognized some of the equipment from science fiction movies, but seeing it in real life was terrifying. A woman in a military uniform approached them. She was tall and serious-looking, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her walked a scientist in a white coat, carrying a tablet computer and looking extremely excited. "I'm Colonel Rivera," the military woman said, her voice stern but not unkind. "And this is Dr. Chen, our specialist in unusual phenomena. We detected massive electromagnetic disturbances coming from this location. Care to explain what happened here?" David's mind raced. He could lie and say he didn't know anything, but something told him these people already knew more than they were letting on. Besides, Zara was standing right next to him, still glowing faintly in the darkness. There was no way to hide her completely. "You can see her, can't you?" David asked quietly. Colonel Rivera's expression didn't change, but Dr. Chen nearly dropped her tablet. "The readings are off the charts," the scientist whispered. "The energy signature is unlike anything we've ever recorded." Zara stepped forward, no longer trying to hide. As she moved into the light, her otherworldly beauty became even more obvious. The soldiers raised their weapons instinctively, but Colonel Rivera held up her hand to stop them. "I mean no harm to your people," Zara said, her musical voice carrying clearly in the night air. "I came here only to find someone who was lost." Dr. Chen was frantically taking readings with her equipment, her eyes wide with scientific fascination. "Colonel, her cellular structure is completely different from anything on Earth. The energy she's emitting could power a small city. This is the discovery of the century." "Or the threat of the century," Colonel Rivera replied grimly. "We have protocols for this situation. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask both of you to come with us for questioning." David felt panic rising in his chest. He looked at Zara, who seemed calm despite being surrounded by armed soldiers. "What are these protocols?" he asked. "Standard procedure for first contact scenarios," the colonel explained. We take you to a secure facility where we can ensure everyone's safety while we figure out what we're dealing with. You mean you want to lock her up and study her like a lab rat, David said, surprising himself with his boldness. Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. It's not like that. We just need to understand her technology, her biology, her intentions. This could revolutionize everything we know about life in the universe. I understand your curiosity, Zara said gently, but I cannot stay on your world much longer. My presence here is already causing problems that you cannot imagine. As if to prove her point, the equipment Dr. Chen was holding started beeping, frantically. The scientist looked at her readings and went pale. Colonel, I'm detecting multiple objects entering Earth's atmosphere, large objects, moving fast. Colonel Rivera grabbed her radio. Command, this is Rivera. Do we have anything? On radar! The response crackled through the radio. Negative, Colonel. But satellite imagery shows unidentified objects approaching from multiple vectors. They're not showing up on conventional radar. Zara closed her eyes and concentrated. When she opened them again, her expression was full of worry. The destroyers have found us. They followed my energy trail here. Destroyers? David asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. My people's greatest enemies, Zara explained. They conquer worlds and steal technology. They've been hunting me across the galaxy because I carry the knowledge of our most powerful defenses. Dr. Chen was still monitoring her equipment. Whatever's coming, they're big, and they're slowing down as they approach Earth. This looks like a deliberate approach, not random meteors. Colonel Rivera made a quick decision. All units, fall back to secure positions. Prepare for possible hostile contact. She turned to Zara. If you're telling the truth about these destroyers, then we need your help to defend Earth. I want to help, Zara said, but my power is limited on your world. The electromagnetic field here dampens my abilities. I can fight, but not at full. Strength. David felt something stirring inside him, like a memory trying to surface. What if you weren't fighting alone? He heard himself ask. Zara looked at him with surprise. David, what do you mean? I can feel it, David said, touching his chest where his heart was racing. The Kieran part of me. It's getting stronger. Being near you, being in danger, it's waking up something inside me. Dr. Chen's equipment started beeping even faster. His bio readings are changing. It's like he's becoming something else right before our eyes. David could feel it too. His vision was getting sharper, and he could sense energy patterns all around him. The fear he had been feeling was replaced by something else, a sense of purpose and power that felt both new and ancient. There's something else you need to know, Zara said, looking directly into David's eyes. I have the ability to restore your original memories completely, to bring Kieran back fully. But if I do that, I'll stop being human, David finished. For her, not exactly. You'll still have David's experiences, but you'll become primarily Kieran again. You'll have all his powers, all his knowledge. You could help me save both your world and mine. David looked around at the soldiers, at Dr. Chen with her excited scientific curiosity, at Colonel Rivera with her determined protectiveness. These were his people, the humans he had lived among his entire life. But he could also feel the pull of the stars, the call of adventure and purpose that had always lived in his heart. If I stay human, David asked, can we still win against these destroyers? I don't know, Zara admitted. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. Your military is brave, but they're not equipped for this kind of fight. And if I become Kieran again? Then we might have a chance, but you'd have to leave Earth with me afterward. Kieran belongs in the stars, not on any single planet. David felt like he was being torn in half. On one side was his human life, his job, his world, his identity as David the scientist. On the other side was cosmic adventure, incredible power, and a love that spanned galaxies. But as he looked up at the sky, where strange lights were beginning to appear among the stars, David realized that the choice might not be his to make. The destroyers were coming, and Earth was in danger. "How long do I have to decide?" David asked. Dr. Chen looked at her equipment again. "Based on their current speed, maybe an hour before they reach Earth." David closed his eyes and tried to quiet his racing thoughts. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the approaching ships, and he knew that in 1 hour, everything would change forever. David didn't get his hour to decide. The enemy ships arrived much faster than anyone expected, appearing in the sky like dark thunderclouds that blocked out the stars. The first thing everyone noticed was how silent they were. These massive ships, each one the size of a football stadium, moved through the air without making any sound at all. Colonel Rivera was shouting orders into her radio, trying to coordinate with military bases around the world. But it quickly became clear that Earth's armies were completely unprepared for this kind of attack. The enemy ships didn't look like anything from human science fiction movies. They were sleek and organic-looking, like giant sea creatures made of black metal that seemed to bend light around them. "They're jamming our communications," Dr. Chen reported, her voice shaking as she watched her equipment fail one by one. "Whatever technology they're using, it's shutting down our electronics." David felt a surge of anger and protectiveness that surprised him. These were his people, his planet, and some cosmic bullies thought they could just show up and take over. The Kieran part of his mind was screaming at him to act, to fight back, to protect everyone he cared about. "Zara," he said urgently, "I need you to do it. Make me remember everything. Give me back Kieran's powers." Zara looked at him with tears in her eyes. "David, are you sure? Once I do this, there's no going back. You'll still be you, but you'll also be him. It might change everything about how you think and feel." "Look around," David said, gesturing at the chaos unfolding around them. "Everything's already changed. At least this way I can do something about it." Before Zara could respond, beams of red light shot down from the nearest enemy ship. The soldiers scattered as the ground where they had been standing exploded into flames. David realized with horror that the aliens weren't trying to communicate or negotiate. They were attacking immediately. "They're not interested in talking," Colonel Rivera said grimly, pulling out her sidearm even though she knew it would be useless against alien technology. "All units, defensive positions. Protect the civilians." David watched as brave human soldiers took cover behind rocks and equipment, preparing to fight enemies with weapons far beyond anything Earth could match. It was like watching people with sticks and stones prepare to fight jet fighters. "Do it. Now," David told Zara firmly. "I can't watch my people get hurt when I have the power to help them." Zara nodded and placed both hands on David's face. Her touch was warm and electric, and David felt energy flowing from her into him like water filling an empty cup. But this time, instead of just glimpses of memories, everything came flooding back at once. David gasped as Kieran's knowledge filled his mind. He remembered how to manipulate energy fields, how to communicate with advanced technology, how to fight using powers that humans didn't even have names for. But more importantly, he remembered loving Zara with a depth that made his human feelings seem small by comparison. "I remember," David whispered, his voice already sounding different. When he opened his eyes, they were glowing with the same silver light as Zara's. "I remember everything." The transformation wasn't just mental. David could feel his body changing too, becoming stronger and faster. His human senses expanded until he could hear radio waves and see energy patterns invisible to normal eyes. He was still David, but now he was also fully Kieran, and the combination was incredible. "The leader of these ships," David said, his enhanced senses picking up communications from the enemy fleet. "His name is Commander Vex. He's not just here for you, Zara. He knows about me too." "That's impossible," Zara said. "How could he know about your rebirth?" David concentrated. using abilities he was still remembering how to use. He's been tracking unusual energy signatures across the galaxy. When you found me and restored my memories, it created a cosmic beacon that led him right to us. More red. Beams lanced down from the ships, and David watched in horror as the telescope facility where he had worked for years was reduced to burning rubble. Dr. Chen was helping wounded soldiers, while Colonel Rivera was desperately trying to call for backup on a radio that wouldn't work. "I have to stop this," David said, energy beginning to crackle around his hands like lightning. But before he could act, something even worse happened. A new ship appeared directly above them, smaller than the others, but radiating power that made David's teeth ache. A beam of blue light shot down from this ship, but instead of destroying anything, it created a kind of energy cage around Zara. "No!" David shouted, rushing toward her, but the energy barrier threw him backward like he had hit a brick wall. Zara was lifted off the ground by the blue beam, trapped and helpless. As she rose toward the ship, David heard a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was deep and menacing, with an accent that sounded like rocks grinding together. "Greetings, Princess," the voice said mockingly. "Commander Vex has been looking forward to meeting you, and your pet human too." David tried again to break through the energy barrier, but it was too strong. Even with all of Kieran's power, he couldn't get through. "Let her go," he screamed at the sky. "I think not," Commander Vex replied. "The princess carries knowledge that my people require. As for you, hybrid creature, you are an interesting development. We will study you both." Colonel Rivera and her soldiers were firing their weapons at the ships now, but their bullets bounced off harmlessly. Dr. Chen was working frantically with a portable computer, trying to find some weakness in the alien technology. "David!" Zara called down to him as she was pulled higher into the sky. "Remember what I taught you about dimensional barriers? Earth is special." David didn't understand what she meant at first, but then Kieran's memories provided the answer. Earth wasn't just another planet. It sat at the intersection of several dimensional barriers, making it a nexus point where incredible power could be channeled by someone who knew how. As Zara disappeared into the enemy ship, David felt rage building inside him like a volcano about to explode. But along with the anger came clarity. He finally understood what he had to do. "Colonel Rivera," David called out, "I need you to get your people to safety. I'm going to try something dangerous." "What are you planning?" the colonel shouted back, over the sound of explosions. "I'm going to turn this entire planet into a weapon," David said, his eyes blazing with determination. Dr. Chen looked up from her computer. "That's impossible. The amount of energy required would be—" "I know exactly how much energy it would require," David interrupted, "and I know how to get it." David closed his eyes and reached out with his enhanced senses, feeling for the network of radio telescopes and communication satellites that surrounded the planet. If he could link them all together and use Earth's position at the dimensional crossroads, he might be able to create something that even Commander Vex couldn't ignore. It was the most dangerous plan he had ever conceived, and if it failed, it would probably destroy Earth. But with Zara captured and his people under attack, David was willing to risk everything. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and David was going to make sure the universe remembered what happened when someone threatened his home. David spread his arms wide and closed his eyes, reaching out with powers he was still learning to control. He could feel every radio telescope, every satellite, every communication tower on Earth. They were all connected by invisible energy waves, creating a network that spanned the entire planet. If he could link them all together and channel Earth's unique dimensional energy through them, he might be able to create something powerful enough to fight back. "What are you doing?" Colonel Rivera shouted over the sound of explosions as more enemy ships appeared in the sky. "Turning Earth into the biggest antenna in the galaxy," David replied, sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to connect with communication systems around the world. "But I need you to trust me." Dr. Chen was monitoring her equipment again, her eyes wide with amazement. The energy readings are incredible. It's like he's linking every electronic device on the planet into one massive network. David felt the connections forming one by one. The big radio telescope in Puerto Rico, the satellite dishes in Australia, the communication towers in Japan. Every cell phone tower, every internet cable, every piece of technology that sent or received signals was becoming part of his plan. But something was wrong. The energy was building too fast, and David could feel it starting to slip out of his control. Earth's dimensional barriers were more powerful than he had expected, and channeling that much cosmic force through human technology was like trying to pour an ocean through a garden hose. "It's not working," David gasped, falling to his knees, as the strain overwhelmed him. "There's too much power. The equipment can't handle it." Above them, Commander Vex's voice boomed down from his ship, sounding amused. "Did you think your primitive technology could challenge the might of the destroyer fleet? You are brave but foolish, hybrid." Just when David thought his plan had failed completely, something unexpected happened. Instead of destroying Earth's communication network, the massive surge of dimensional energy tore open a hole in space itself. The air above the telescope facility began to shimmer and twist, and suddenly new ships began pouring through the gap. But these weren't more enemy vessels. These ships were beautiful and elegant, made of the same shimmering material as Zara's dress. They moved like dancers, graceful and swift, and they immediately began attacking Commander Vex's fleet with weapons that looked like streams of liquid starlight. "The Andorian fleet," David whispered in amazement. "I accidentally created a bridge between galaxies." The largest of the new ships was clearly the flagship, decorated with symbols that David's restored memories recognized as royal insignia. As it drew closer, David could sense a powerful presence aboard that felt familiar and comforting. "Father!" Zara's voice echoed in David's mind, even though she was still trapped aboard the enemy ship. "You came!" A new voice spoke across the cosmic battlefield, deeper than Commander Vex's, but warm and noble. "Release my daughter immediately, Vex. Your quarrel is with me, not with these innocent people." "Emperor Thalon," Commander Vex replied, his earlier confidence now replaced with uncertainty. "You are far from home, old fool. This changes nothing." "On the contrary," Emperor Thalon said calmly, "this changes everything." The battle that followed was unlike anything humans had ever witnessed. Ships that looked like flying jewels danced through the sky, firing beams of pure energy at the dark, menacing destroyer vessels. David watched in awe as his plan, which had seemed like a failure, turned into Earth's salvation. But the rescue came with a price. Emperor Thalon's ship destroyed Commander Vex's vessel and freed Zara. But the dimensional bridge David had created was unstable. It was pulling energy from Earth's core, and if it stayed open much longer, it would tear the planet apart. "David!" Zara called as she was teleported safely back to the ground beside him. "You have to close the bridge. The energy drain will destroy your world." David tried to shut down the connection, but his hybrid nature had changed him in ways he didn't fully understand yet. The bridge was tied to his life force now, and closing it might mean giving up all of Kieran's power permanently. "If I close it, will I still be able to help your people?" David asked. "I don't know," Zara admitted. "But if you don't close it, there won't be any people left to help." David looked around at the humans who had become his friends during this incredible night. Colonel Rivera was helping wounded soldiers, showing the same courage she had displayed throughout the crisis. Dr. Chen was documenting everything with her equipment, her scientific curiosity undiminished even in the face of intergalactic war. These were his people too, just as much as the Andorians were. David realized that he didn't have to choose between being human or being alien. He could be both. "I have a better idea," David said, taking Zara's hand. "What if we didn't close the bridge?" "Completely. What if we stabilized it instead?" Working together, David and Zara managed to control the dimensional rift, shrinking it down to a manageable size and anchoring it safely in space above Earth. The result was a permanent gateway between the two galaxies, small enough to be stable, but large enough for ships to pass through. Emperor Thalen's flagship descended to Earth, and the alien ruler himself came down to meet the humans who had helped save his daughter. He was tall and regal, with the same otherworldly beauty as Zara, but tempered by wisdom and age. "You have done something remarkable here," the Emperor told David and the assembled humans. "You have created the first stable intergalactic bridge in the history of both our civilizations." Colonel Rivera stepped forward, speaking for all of humanity. "What does this mean for Earth?" "It means," Emperor Thalen said with a gentle smile, "that your people and mine can finally become friends. We can share knowledge, explore the universe together, and learn from each other." Dr. Chen could barely contain her excitement. The scientific possibilities are endless. We could advance human knowledge by thousands of years overnight. David felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his alien powers. This was what Kieran had dreamed of when he first volunteered for the dangerous mission between galaxies. Not conquest or domination, but friendship and cooperation between different worlds. 6 months later, David stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, humanity's first joint space colony with the Andorians. The station was positioned near the dimensional bridge, serving as a meeting place and research facility for both civilizations. Through the large windows, David could see Earth on one side and the shimmering gateway to Andromeda on the other. Ships from both worlds came and went regularly, carrying diplomats, scientists, and families who wanted to experience life among the stars. Zara joined him at the window, as beautiful as ever in her dress of living starlight. "Do you ever regret your choice?" she asked. "You could have been fully Kieran again, ruler of worlds and master of cosmic forces." David smiled and put his arm around her. "I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be," he said. "I'm David, the human scientist who fell in love with the stars, and I'm Kieran, the space explorer who found his way home. I'm the bridge between our worlds, just like this station." As they watched, a group of human children played with young Andorians in the station's garden, their laughter echoing through the corridors. The two species were learning from each other, growing together, building a future that neither could have imagined alone. "Besides," David added, squeezing Zara's hand, "I finally found what I was really searching for all those nights at the telescope. Not just alien life, but a love that spans the entire universe." Zara smiled and leaned against him. "And I found my human," she whispered, just like she had that first magical night. "My bridge between the stars. In the distance, Earth's communication." Arrays were picking up new signals from deep space, suggesting that other civilizations might be out there waiting to be discovered. David knew that his greatest adventures were still ahead of him, but now he wouldn't be facing them alone. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but David had learned that the greatest wonder of all was finding someone to share it with.